Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's SME Club event. For those of you who have not met before, I'm Jen Quinn, Growth Manager at Virgin Money Manchester, and we're delighted to be sponsors of today's event. I've got a really special offer to share with you all today, as we've just launched our personal current account bundle offer for new customers. Along with all of the great benefits already available, you will also receive a luxury 15-bottle case of virgin wines just in time for Christmas, plus a saving of up to £225 across selected 18-month Virgin Media packages. We'll of course share that link with you after today's event in case you'd like to see more, and please do feel free to get in touch if you have any further questions. We'd love to hear how you found today's event. Please do tag us in your social media posts. That's at Virgin Money on all social platforms. And protecting against the effects of COVID is today's discussion topic. So for now, I'll hand over to Andy McGlynn, GSquared Health Clubs, and look forward to catching up with you at our next event. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you very much, Jen. That's very kind of you. Guys, thank you very much for joining. It is great to be reconnected with you again. I think it was March, April when we went into lockdown that I presented to you last. Obviously, we've had a very eventful year, and I've been tracking the science and the learnings around COVID very carefully since March and April, and I wish to share what I believe to be some quite valuable content with you. We also have a free gift for you as well, just for attending today, and I'll share and explain a bit more about that in a moment. Now I'm just going to change screens. I'm going to got a presentation to share with you guys. Let's go into that. Okay, so for those of you that aren't aware, my name is Andy McGlynn, as Jen advised, and I'm the CEO of the GSquared Group, which is part of the club that we're launching in St Anne's Square. We're actually in pre-launch right now, so we open the doors to the gym in January. Very brief background, literally one slide. I've been what you would call personal training for 18 years, or coaching. Prior to that, in the Marines, I've mentored personal trainers all over Europe. So I've been to various countries and actually helped gyms to build their PT brand. And I've operated for most of the large health chains that you're aware of within the UK. And my main focus from where I come from right now, the information I'm going to share with you, is taken from my background in clinical nutrition and what we call functional diagnostic nutrition, where we take lab tests and we interpret the reports and the stats from those lab tests from adrenal fatigue, IBS issues, bacteria infections, vitamin D deficiencies, pretty much anything and everything that you can test for from a health perspective. And I also merge that, guys, with a postural and movement-based background as well. So I'm looking at improving people's posture. And as soon as I say that, you probably sit up a little bit taller, and looking at alleviating the aches and the pains that people suffer from. Now, there's three entities that I would like to kind of raise your awareness about. We have the Remedy Kitchen, which you may have already heard of. They're based in the Royal Exchange Arcade, right next door to the gym. It's the first and only free from cafe in Manchester. And we kind of think outside of London as well. So everything that those guys make is free from dairy, gluten, wheat, and refined sugar. And refined sugar, guys, I would encourage you to make notes as I go through, and please ask questions as we discuss this. Refined sugar is one of the biggest reasons that is driving a lot of the ill health right now, and the reason why our COVID stats have been so egregiously bad in the UK. We've obviously exceeded 50,000 deaths, and now we're suggesting it's even more than that, is because we are laden with ill health, and we are consuming 3 times the recommended daily allowance for refined sugar in the UK, and it's having all sorts of effects on the body, which I'll talk about. We also have the GSquared Academy, so we actually train people to become personal trainers, but where I'm coming from today is largely GSquared Health Clubs, based in the Royal Exchange. And I just want to show you a few images in case you're not seeing it. These are the images that we're working with to create the club. We open in January next year. We're in pre-launch right now. This is the front of house area or reception area. We have saunas and very, very well fitted changing rooms. The saunas, guys, are infrared saunas. So exactly the same as a normal sauna, but infrared has an additional benefit in that it draws more toxins from the subcutaneous tissues. It improves joint inflammation and joint issues, especially arthritis, and some quite enlightened medical centers in the US are now using infrared saunas to help their cancer patients, because infrared can actually draw plastics from the body. And if you're not aware, plastics are carcinogenic. If I have time, we'll cover some of that towards the end, because I think there's a few things you should know. We've got running track, an assault course, climbing wall, traversing wall, performance room, CV garden. We've really kind of ripped the rule book up when it came to creating this gym. So yes, we've gone for a very stunning aesthetic appearance, but we've thrown some real quirks into it. That's a CV garden right there, where we're trying to employ as much natural rock, wood, vegetation. We've even got an aquarium in there. We've got a waterfall feature. We're trying to bring as much natural element to a basement gym as we can for that kind of escapism feel. And we've got all the kit you'd expect. So yes, it's a very holistic gym. We're focused on the emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical component that we exist as human beings. But we've got the conventional strength conditioning, resistance, fixed and free weights. But, you know, we've just gone that little bit quirky. Those few additions, like the aquarium there built into the wall of the studio, and a very, very calm and tranquil space where we'll be delivering Pilates, yoga, Tai Chi, as well as high intensity classes. One of the jewels to the crown is this thing called the Bod Pod. And there it is there. It looks like something out of Buck Rogers. This is basically a capsule that tests body fat. It's actually become now the gold standard. So 3 reasons why you would use Bod Pod. First of all, I'm sure you're aware, and I won't go into much detail, but I just want to really kind of highlight the USP here. You've got body fat testing in various means. I'm sure some of you have had a caliper test where you've had someone actually pulling calipers on your skin. Skinfold caliper testing, guys, has a high degree of user error. We have bioimpedance, where you might stand on scales, or you might hold a handheld, or it might be that you have pads placed onto you. Bioimpedance is also quite an indirect regression equation, which means it's not particularly accurate. We have hydrostatic weighing, where you are submerged in water, which is pretty horrendous. And then we have DEXA scan. And DEXA scan is reputed to be the gold standard, but it does have radiation emitted from it. So we decided to go with Bod Pod to avoid the radiation exposure. And this is actually part of the members induction. So if you think about typical members inductions, and then you consider what we're doing here with introducing high quality body fat testing at the very start, there's quite a stark difference. We are in pre-launch right now, guys, so we are actually selling memberships. I've been pleasantly surprised just how many memberships we've actually sold so far during this kind of COVID lockdown period. So pre-launch will run right up to end of December, or until we actually reach the limit of members that we're looking to start and open the doors with. As pro Manchester members, guys, you are entitled to 15%. So if you were interested to inquire more, what we're doing is what we call virtual tours. So we're actually able to connect with you on Zoom and go through a virtual tour to talk to you in much more detail about the gym itself. All you need to do is just let us know you're a pro Manchester member, and you'll be entitled to that 15% discount. It is a high-end gym, guys, so the membership prices are reflective of that, and we're not really doing deals with people outside of networks that we're involved with. So the 15% thing is very specific to the Pro Manchester network, just to make that completely clear. Now, I mentioned to you about a free gift just for attending this webinar. I would be delighted if you could join us down at Remedy Kitchen for cake and coffee on us. All you need to do is just come down to the arcade, Royal Exchange Arcade. You'll see Remedy is open for business doing takeouts. And all you're going to do is mention your name and that you're from Pro Manchester, and then we'll have your name behind the till, behind the counter, and you can redeem your coffee and cake or any hot beverage and cake for a takeout. You can check out the Remedy Kitchen there at theremelykitchen.co.uk to see the full menu. They're doing meal plans at the moment, which is going down a storm. We've got coffee passes, smoothie passes. The coffee pass is £20 a month, which is pretty incredible. And a really, really amazing menu, which I say is completely healthy because the allergens have been removed, but they've found a workaround in terms of alternative ingredients, and it tastes awesome. So just for joining, guys, as a bit of a thank you, please accept that gift. All you got to do is pop down to Remedy and redeem it. Okay, let's get into the crux of this. I'm gonna pitch to you a very stark picture of the kind of the baseline level of health in the UK. And guys, this is by no means exhaustive, but these are some of the issues that we've got going on. So most of you guys on the call right now are what we call overly stimulated. The posh name is hypothalamic pituitary axis dysregulation. It's a posh word for adrenal dysfunction. Okay, something about your adrenal glands is insufficient. You're either using too much cortisol from your adrenals, and that's being triggered by the hypothalamus and the pituitary, which essentially regulate the adrenals, or you are so exhausted adrenally, and this, you may resonate with this, guys, that you're feeling tired, particularly in the mornings. That's a giveaway sign that someone's got an adrenal dysfunction, when they're waking up and they're feeling tired and they're having to jack themselves up on caffeine or some sort of stimulant, and or they're wanting to go to sleep fairly early, about say 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. They're sat in front of the TV and they're just drifting off. There's a lot of key markers for that. 3/4 of the UK are what we call insulin resistant, otherwise known as pre-diabetes, also otherwise known as dysinsulinemia. It's the precursor to becoming type 2 diabetic. And I know it sounds shocking, but insulin resistance is basically where you're not managing the sugars that you're consuming particularly well. 80%-ish of the UK have some form of dysbiosis. That's an imbalance of good and bad bacteria. There's about 1/3 of us suffering from IBS symptoms, which is interesting because that's linked to bad bacteria in the gut. It's linked to a number of things, but that can be one of the drivers. Over 2/3 of us have some form of sleep disruption in the UK, whether you struggle to get to sleep, whether you are waking during the night, or whether you're waking not feeling refreshed. As I've already mentioned, 3 times the consumption of refined sugar at the moment on average in the UK. 26% of the UK are obese. It's nowhere near as bad as it is in America, where it's 40%. So 40% aren't just overweight, but they're actually obese, which is absolutely an appalling figure. And again, probably demonstrates why the US has also had a really bad run of COVID issues. Total overweight population of the UK is 68%. We are consuming quite a lot of plastics in our diet, from water bottles to microwave meals to plastic cups. And we consume about 30 micrograms of plastic a day. That's more deleterious to males than it is to females, because plastic behaves like estrogen in the body. It's called a xenestrogen, and it disrupts the testosterone development in young boys in particular, but it's what's called an endocrine disruptor. So it disrupts the hormonal balance, and it possibly answers some of the questions around why male testosterone in the Western world has dropped by 30%. So the normal baseline markers that they use to test against, if you go from a testosterone lab test, has dropped in the last 3 decades by 1/3, which is quite concerning and obviously has ramifications for males in the UK. Consequently, it does mean that 1 in 2 of us are now contracting cancer. But the good news is that nearly half of those cancers are lifestyle attributed, which means that there's lots that we can do about it. And many of us, guys, are what we call undernourished but overfed. And if you, I assume, are in business and you're looking for optimal performance physically and mentally, I'm going to be very blunt with you. A meal deal from Greggs or Subway or wherever you're going for your pre-packed meals is not going to cut it, guys. I can't emphasize that enough to you. I'm not preaching to you, way too long in the tooth to preach. But I just implore you to understand that if you're looking for the best from yourself, physically and mentally, and as we go into these slides, you're going to understand why it's important. You're not going to get the best if you're not putting in optimum foods, live foods with as many of the allergens removed as possible, which is really why places like the Remedy Kitchen exist, to try and give you that better food choice. And they are doing meal prep, guys, so take advantage of that. Apologies, let me just go back to my slides. There we go. Okay. All right, so let's get into what we can do. Unless there's any questions at this point, if there's any questions, I'll happily answer them at the end. But let's have them in. Let's get a discussion going on here towards the end. I won't be able to cover all of this today, but I'll certainly go as far as I can and leave time for you. But stay with me, guys, because there's a lot here that can really help you out. The first thing that we've got to look at is repairing the gut, and I'm going to give you some step-by-step pointers to do that. Why do we need to repair the gut? Because the gut is 70% of your immunity. 70% of your immunity is made in the gut and is actually part of the gut itself, amongst many, many, many other things like brain health, neurotransmitters, etc. And there's 4 common issues. I've already mentioned 2 of them. Dysbiosis, a posh word for an imbalance of bacteria between good and bad. You've all heard of bad bacteria, good bacteria. You've all heard of probiotics. So we're going to take a quick look at that. Intestinal permeability is the medical name for irritable bowel syndrome, or IBD, as it's now being called, irritable bowel disease. And essentially, guys, in our stomach lining, gut lining rather, we have tight junctions that can open up. And when they open up, that releases the undigested particles that go down what's called the portal veins to the liver, and that's when you get the IBS symptoms. So if we can close the tight junctions or repair the perforations in those junctions and or stop eating the foods that are causing those junctions to open, then you solve the IBS symptoms. Okay, it really is quite simple in theory. It's just following it and doing it. But again, I've got some pointers for you. Third issue that people are suffering from is what we call achlorhydria, which is a downregulation of a very important stomach enzyme, which helps us not only to absorb zinc, but also break down proteins, especially from meats. So if those of you who are meat eaters on the call, you've got to make sure you've got sufficient stomach enzymes, otherwise that meat will just sit in your small intestine, fermenting and not being digested optimally. I know a lot of personal trainers prescribe zinc and magnesium, or ZMA or ZMA. Guys, if you don't have optimum hydrochloric acid levels in the form of stomach enzymes, you're not going to absorb the zinc optimally. So taking zinc is only really one part of the equation. And it bothers me immensely why this information hasn't come from the government. You know, all we've kind of gone on about is hands, face, space. And I'm despairing that this information isn't being shared to actually help the nation do something pragmatic for themselves that links back to the science, which is absolutely out there from a clinical nutritionist perspective. It's absolutely there. The fourth issue, which is slightly harder to rectify, is what's called blunted brush border. This is where you have the villi. The villi are the little hairs that kind of surround your stomach lining that become worn down, normally due to some form of stress or inflammation to the gut, which you can spot on someone when they have body fat build up around we call it the muffin top, around the back of the trouser line. That is an indication, believe it or not, it's a receptor site, as it's called, for inflammation in the gut. Now, the inflammation comes from either eating poor quality food, or foods that we're intolerant to, or having a dysbiosis, or something else that's causing inflammation to the gut. And that pressure, that stress, causes this what's called blunted brush border, which then creates issues for digestion and ultimately can lead towards IBS, because if the body can't digest it, the tight junctions open and down it goes, the portal vein, and then you have the issues that you have. So I've already said it, but I'm going to say it again. Gut health is 70% of your immunity, and I'm just completely wondering why now, what, 6 months on is it since we locked down? No, longer, 7 months on, that we actually haven't gone through an education process and understood how we can ramp up immunity to protect us from COVID. And this absolutely will do that through the use of it charging up white blood cells and producing more of the right enzymes and neurotransmitters from the gut. So let's look at IBS then briefly. I know this affects many of us on the call. I speak to business people all the time who've got so much stress in their body they're actually having IBS symptoms. It comes from food intolerances, as I've mentioned. Also comes from a substance that's released from foods. Look at these foods, guys. Make a note of these foods, eliminate them from your diet, and see what happens. That's called an elimination diet, where you take one food out for 5 days and you see what happens. Tomatoes, aubergines, and peppers, especially tomatoes, are notorious for releasing what's called zonulin. And there's another substance called oclidin as well. Zonulin and oclidin, as well as stress from the body, will open up the tight junctions to cause IBS. Parasite or bacteria infection, I know it sounds gross, guys, but more people than you realize will actually have a liver fluke, which is a form of a worm, or some form of parasite living in their body. Certain telltale signs are sugar cravings, waking repeatedly during the night, grinding your teeth at nighttime, because what happens is the parasites become alive at night and become active, and they bore into your skin. Particular parasites from dogs called Giardia or Giardia. You can research this if you wish. But if you've got massive exposure to dogs or animals, or you've been abroad to some exotic places, or you've had food poisoning, these are all ways that you end up with parasite infections that will literally, these things are crazy, guys. They will actually control your environment to make it suit them. They'll turn the heating on. You know, they'll create what's called a biofilm that encourages more bacteria to come to the party. It's quite, these things are quite incredible, but they can be destroyed very quickly. You can take action today, and I'm going to show you how. Dysbiosis, that does cause IBS. Excessive stress, I'm going to keep saying that, guys, because you've got to get a grip of your stress. This is the biggest thing that the modern world has struggled with. So in the US now, 3/4 of the population suffer from, not suffer from, but are reliant on medication to get them through a day. They have also less holiday days than us per year. And obviously it's a very industrious, very, very successful nation from a commercial and should we say, white collar corporate perspective. It's a very successful nation, but it comes at a price to the individual, and we've got to catch up with that. Being in what we call a permanent state of sympathetic. I'm not going to go into so much detail, a bit of science here, so I'll break it down and explain it. You have you have a switch, and the switch will either be sympathetic, which means you are alert, you're stressed, you're wired, you're engaged, or you are parasympathetic, which is where you are calm, tranquil, in control. And we refer to it as flight or fight. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before. So if you're in a sympathetic response state, you're in that flight or fight. So you're either giving out, not necessarily stressed, but certainly giving out energy, what the Chinese refer to as being very yang energy. And that triggers the hypothalamus and the pituitary to then give out more cortisol, and will suppress thyroid, it'll suppress growth hormone, and it will play around with blood insulin. So you'll start to get more sugar cravings as well. Okay, what can we do then? First of all, obvious one that you can do today, employ some form of meditation, stretching, breathing, yoga, something that's what we call yin building. You may want to consider magnesium bath salts. We've partnered with a company called Better You. They're based, they sell in Holland Barrett, they are online, and they do magnesium bath salts, which are very, very impacting. So I swear by magnesium bath salts. They calm you down, they shut down any muscle aches and pains, and they actually help you to sleep. So if you've got sleep issues, consider investing in a bath of magnesium salts, about £12 per bag, and you just put a couple of handfuls in the bath with you. We mentioned it already, but try the elimination diet. So hone in on certain foods where you think you becoming intolerant to. You can do various blood work, and one called the Cambridge test, which is good for food intolerance tests. you need to probably draw at least 2 vials to get the most accurate results. Just be mindful of people offering you food intolerance tests that don't involve larger samples of blood, because they're probably not going to be as accurate. But you can do it yourself today just by taking a certain food out that you think you might be intolerant to, and then just checking in with how you feel. Guys, vitamin D3. There's probably a number of reasons on this call why you should be taking D3. I urge you to get some D3 ordered today and start taking it. One, it's been proven now to help protect against COVID. And I'm going to talk about that shortly. Secondly, we're going into the winter season where you're going to be deficient anyway, and some of you might be suffering from SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Third, it's going to help your spine because the vitamin D receptor sites are in your spine. So anyone with lower back issues, vitamin D3 can help. And fourth, it has been proven to assist with IBS. There's a whole bunch of other benefits, particularly connected to weight loss as well, but we'll stay with it for now, that it's going to benefit IBS. You can use wormwood, black walnut, clove. These are formulas that are now ready-made. These are very aggressive herbs, guys, that you can buy in tincture. So you just drop some in some water and knock it back. You do that for 21 to 30 days. There's a specific process. You can either email me or you can ask questions at the end. I'll go into more detail, but they will kill the parasites in your small intestine and in your liver as well. And then if any of you who know you've got damaged stomach lining or epithelial lining is the correct phrase, you can use things called L-glutamine, which is an amino acid, aloe vera, I'm sure you've heard of that, and then licorice in its herb form. They will all help to repair perforations, particularly, in my experience, guys, and listen carefully to this one, particularly with people who've got perforations in their stomach lining due to taking too much ibuprofen. So you're aware that certain medications have effects on the body, both good and bad. And one of the impacts of ibuprofen is that it will disrupt your stomach. It will suppress stomach enzymes, and it will actually perforate the lining over prolonged use. Not just, I'm talking about prolonged use here. And you can repair those stomach lining perforations. Avocado, absolute incredible food. There's so many reasons why you should take avocado. First one is it's great for low mood state and depression. So again, one for the winter. It's very dense in various nutrients. And for older guys, for your dads or your granddads or your older brothers, get them incorporating avocado because it's got what's called a cytosterol called beta cytosterol. You've probably heard of plant sterols and their benefits on cholesterol. Well, beta cytosterol found in avocado is very powerful for the prostate. And I know that the Remedy Kitchen do a smoothie with avocado made fresh to order. You might want to check it out. It's called the Green Miracle. I'm advised. I incorrectly called it the Morning Miracle. Maybe that was just like my my subconscious Freudian slip, because I drink it in the morning. It's great for the morning. It really sets you up for the day. But it's called the Green Miracle. You want to check it out. It's quite something. It tastes incredible. Made fresh. All right, let's move swiftly on then. Yeah, one of the benefits of avocado is that it's particularly powerful in its antifungal and its antibacterial properties. So anyone that's suffered from E. coli, which is a particularly nasty poison that we often get, or bacteria that we often get from food poisoning, again, avocado is useful for that. Just going to move into a second one, dysbiosis. Again, this is just two that I'm going to cover here before I move on. So we know that refined sugar actually feeds the bad bacteria. They're using refined sugar now for a number of tests for cancer as well. I'll get to that in a moment. People often get dysbiosis after a course of antibiotics because the antibiotics don't just wipe out the bad bacteria or the infection, they wipe out everything. So you do well to get on probiotics after a course of antibiotics. I probably wouldn't recommend taking probiotics with antibiotics. It might upset your stomach a little bit. People with dysbiosis often have a lack of prebiotics. These are essentially substances that feed the existing bacteria in the gut through a substance called butyrate. I'll talk to you about which food you can use in a second. Food poisoning and bacterial infection, yeah, goes without saying. And then we have a thing called candida, you've probably heard of that, otherwise known as small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, which is where it sits. And the clove, the wormwood, and the black walnut on an empty stomach, it's not the most pleasant thing in the world, guys. But if you want to get rid of that stomach cramp, stomach bloating, IBS symptoms, and you're sick to death of having that feeling in your stomach, then you've just got to go through that for 21 days and it will absolutely just destroy the candida. When it comes to probiotics, interestingly, different strains have different effects on the body. I'm not going to read these out, you can read it for yourself. But if you're suffering with depression, you might want to just check that whichever one you're going to buy has those Lactobacillus helveticus, acidophilus, and Bifidobacterium longum. Then if you focus is weight loss, again, you can use probiotics and different strains. And in many of my clients that have had cardiovascular health, and again, I don't understand why the British Heart Foundation isn't sharing this information. Guys, listen carefully to this. The health of your heart is not down to brisk exercise. There's no correlation to a healthy heart and exercising. And I know that might sound really warped or contentious. It's really not. The health, not the fitness, the health of your heart is down to it being nourished with the right nutrients. We know that omega-3 is crucial for heart health. You type in omega-3 and cardiovascular in a Google search and you'll get so much research back. L-carnitine, that's an amino acid, D-ribose, taurine. Taurine is a very powerful amino acid that's great for the heart health and the cardiovascular system, and then certain probiotics. That's what you want to be nourishing someone's body with to give them a healthier heart. And of course, the avocado to try and balance the cholesterol. Getting a stronger heart, yes, that's down to exercising the heart and making it stronger. But you may remember 2 years ago, we had the football player, Premiership player, absolute peak of his career, super fit guy, had a heart attack on the pitch. Why? Because yes, it was a freak occurrence, but there were certain health implications connected to his heart. It was nothing to do with his stroke volume, nothing to do with his tidal volume, nothing to do with his blood pressure, nothing to do with his resting heart rate. They were all absolutely off the chart. It was to do with health ramifications connected to his heart that caused the dysfunction. All right, these are the prebiotics, guys. So in terms of what you can do to feed the good bacteria that's going to basically boost your immune system, you can go for cold white rice or white potato. You can go for good quality oats with a plant-based milk. Strongly advise you guys to come off the dairy. It's probably upsetting your stomach. It's probably causing you a mucus buildup, and you're probably intolerant to it on some level. If you don't like the idea of switching to plant-based milks and you don't want to feel that there's a change in taste, I will tell you now to take a Pepsi challenge between a dairy milk cup of tea, breakfast tea, and a breakfast tea with cashew milk. I absolutely guarantee you will not taste the difference. When it comes to your oats, you might want to try an almond milk or an oat milk. And when it comes to the bananas, slightly unripe or slightly green bananas, so not too ripened, otherwise it's too high GI, but slightly unripe bananas. These 4 foods of the many range of foods will actually help to boost your butyrate, which is the substance that feeds your own good bacteria. So hopefully now your take home on this is that you've got prebiotics, which is the butyrate that feeds the existing good bacteria. Then you've got the probiotics, which is where you're essentially pouring more good bacteria into the system. And you can do that and have a bad environment, and then it won't survive. So you can see it's not just about taking a capsule and saying, yeah, I'm on probiotics, I'm okay. It's kind of a balance. When it comes to the parasite cleanse, as I mentioned, I've just wanted to show you a picture here. This is one of the better products out there in the market. It's a place called Baldwin & Co in London that sells this. The brand name is Nature's Answer, and they've got a pre-made tincture in black walnut, wormwood, and clove. And then you might want to follow that if you're really into your health. And if I ever get chances to present in front of you face to face, hopefully one day that'll be the case, I'll show you some videos of the liver flush method created by a woman called Dr. Hulda Clark. Sadly passed away now, but she was responsible for kidney flush and liver flush processes that, again, are very, very deep holistic processes, which essentially help you to release the gallstones. But you wouldn't do that until you've done a para cleanse, as it's referred to. Okay, moving swiftly on, just a quick time check. I'm going to go as far as I can, and then I'm going to pause in probably 12 minutes for questions. So how can you test if you've actually got good or bad gut health? There's a thing called the spit test. And all you do, you get a glass of water, clear glass of water in the morning, first thing before having drunk or eaten anything. And you just spit some saliva into the top of it. And after a period of time, you'll get one of these formations. So the results are as follows. If you get this formation within 1 to 2 minutes, so you just spit into it, put it on the side, and then carry on making breakfast. If you see that within 60 to 120 seconds, guys, it means you've got a severe candida issue and you want to take action from the protocols I've laid out. If that forms within 5 minutes, then it's a moderate candida issue. If you don't get any formation or it's after like 15 minutes, then you're in a pretty good state. So try that tomorrow morning, guys. Tomorrow morning, go into your kitchen, clear glass, fill with water, just spit into it, put it on the side, and see what happens. Make sure you get plenty of saliva into it, otherwise it won't work. Moving swiftly on, vitamin D3. Guys, D3, that's the more absorbable version of vitamin D, okay? So always make sure you purchase the D3. This is the track record in 2020. So back in May, we started to think that there may have been an emerging link between D deficiency and increased risk of COVID. And this came from a study in Indonesia where they noticed that literally 4% of sufficient D3 sufficient clients or patients were dying versus 96% of patients who were insufficient or deficient. So there's this like a range of 3. So you're either sufficient, where you have optimum D levels in your system. You then drop down to what's called insufficiency, and then the most severe is deficiency. I don't see many deficiencies, but I see probably 98% insufficiency in the UK. September, we then start to build this confidence that actually vitamin D is showing a positive correlation with contracting COVID, but we were still holding back. And it wasn't until last month, October, that we finally came out in the medical journals and said there is a link between vitamin D deficiency and insufficiency and an increased risk of COVID. And guess what? Most of the UK population are insufficient, and going into winter, that will only get worse. I implore you to get yourself on a vitamin D3 supplement straight away. I'll talk to you about the levels in a second. This was my test result back in March of this year. I'm just going to talk you through this very quickly. So that's 10th of March 2020. I came up as adequate or sufficient. So I was 143 nanomoles per litre of D in my blood. Hypertoxicity would be considered around about 220 nanomoles, so I was within range. It took me to take, and this is personal to me, 8 to 12,000 IU, 8 to 12,000 international units of vitamin D a day, every day for 4 months. So I started this in November 19. So November, December, January, February, then I came off, and then on the 10th of March, had my test done, still in that kind of, fairly cold, wintry season, and it came up as sufficient. So don't underestimate how much dosing you might need to take, guys, to get the vitamin D up in your own system. You might want to visit Amaranth, who do vitamin D blood tests. It's very quick, it's just a thumb prick. They send off the analysis, and then you get a report back like this. I think they're great guys. Amaranth retail in the Royal Exchange Arcade. Speak to Jo, tell her that I've sent you down there, and she'll look after you. Okay, very quickly before I move to questions, guys, I want to just touch about one more thing, and that's neurotransmitters. So these little things are made in the gut. There are 4 main neurotransmitters. You've probably heard of these, some of them at least. You've got dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, and GABA. And we're all either deficient in one and dominant in another. And by doing a simple test, you can tell which one you are. So simple questionnaire, it's called the Braverman test. There it is right there. There's quite a few questions to it. And it will talk you through which one is your deficient and which one is your dominant. And this is really quite important because you've got to work on your deficient one. If you want the questionnaire, email me at inquiries@GSquaredClubs.com or Andy@GSquaredClubs.com, or speak to Catherine, and I'll get that questionnaire sent out to you, and then you can go through and see which one you are. So if you are coming up as low serotonin, let me give you some solutions for which one you end up becoming. Low serotonin means that you need to take low glycemic index, high quality, I should say quality, not quantity, of carbs in the evening. Back in the 90s, we used to say carbs late add weight. Nonsense. It's about the caloric expenditure versus intake and other factors such as nutrition partitioning, which affect whether you gain weight or lose weight. But having carbs in the evening, quality, low GI carbs, like a bowl of oats, for example, will help to induce serotonin, which will also help to induce melatonin to help you sleep. If you have low dopamine, so if you take this Braverman test and it comes up as low dopamine, get some nuts into your diet. Pine nuts, macadamia and walnuts are particularly useful, and also start that vitamin D3 dosing. You can do avocado and salmon. Most people would argue against salmon because, again, it's sadly from the sea and we've successfully polluted the seas. So at any high dosing, you're gonna make yourself probably metal toxic. If you come up as low acetylcholine, then you want to get some of what we call the energizing amino acids, so L-carnitine, L-phenylalanine, L-tyrosine, or if you are a meat eater, consider upping the red meats, again, locally, organically sourced meats there, guys. And if you come up as low GABA, which means that you have a hard time sleeping or getting to sleep, you're a bit of a night owl, then you want to try and induce melatonin through enhancing the gut health, doing the magnesium bath and the magnesium in the evening, and all the other evening protocols that we've gone through and talked about, such as the stretching, the meditation, anything that's going to bring you down and calm you down, and trying to get that cortisol just to drop in the evening. So that's the Braverman test. Drop me an email if you want it. Just going to quickly go through these points. Now, this is interesting at the end here. I've mentioned this a few times now, that they're now using sugar, refined sugar, in patients where they suspect cancer, because the sugar causes the tumor to actually glow. So when they're doing a scan, if they pump into the body a dose of glucose, which is essentially a very glycemic sugar, the tumor actually gives itself away by glowing, and it's glowing because it's being fed by the sugars. Crazy, I know, but that's what's going on for them now. Also with cancer patients, anyone that's on chemo, so if you've got any friends or family on chemo, chemotherapy suppresses melatonin. So you'll often get a complaint from chemotherapy patients that they can't sleep. So if you can try and get them on taurine, an amino acid, or tryptophan, again, a naturally occurring amino acid, that will help to induce melatonin. And also try and fix the gut as well, because the gut is a representation of how much melatonin is being produced, because we know about 70% plus of our neurotransmitters are actually made in the gut. I'm going to just pass through all that, guys, because we haven't got time for that, but I just want to talk about this in terms of toxicity, just to finish things off with. This is the last thing I'm going to say. Toxicity is a big driver of ill health in the UK right now, and many products are sadly carcinogenic, which means that they have properties that can cause us to become imbalanced and disrupt our endocrine system, that then bring on cancer. You can check out all your toiletries, all your cosmetics by going on this website, ewg.org. you simply punch in the products. I've done a few here for you. So I've got here Clarins sunscreen. You can see it's rated as a 7 out of 10, so pretty toxic. We've got Molton Brown's bath and shower gel, 8 out of 10. And then here on the right hand side, you can see what the concerns are. So we've got a mild concern for cancer with the Clarins sunscreen. It's got a high risk of reproductive toxicity or developmental toxicity, so you wouldn't give it to young children. It's an immunotoxic, so it's going to be suppressing your immune system. And then looking at the Molton Brown, less of a cancer risk, less of a reproductive toxicity risk, but certainly advises to use restrictions, and is very, very allergenic, so it's going to disrupt the immune system. So guys, I know that's shocking, and I know I'm just covering it very quickly, but check out ewg.org and punch in your cosmetics that you use and see what's going on for yourself. Final thing on the toxins, plastics. Every single bottle, so whether it's the Evian bottle of water that I've got in front of me here, oh gosh, that's a 1, that's not ideal, has a little triangle and a number in. So we have the numbers considered safe are 2, 4, and 5. And then the numbers that are not so great, sadly, are 1, 3, 6, and 7. So use those with caution. What that means is do not expose your plastic to heat, because that's when the plastic leaches into the liquid or leaches into the food, whichever it is you're consuming. So just try and be a little bit more conscientious, be a bit more aware, and consider what the number is in the triangle, and try and consider what you're going to drink or consume from. All these little things all add up. Guys, that is me done. I'm going to switch back to the main screen, and I'm going to take any questions that anyone has got. Thank you very much. So, Catherine, have we got any questions coming through, or are we all good?
None through at the moment, Andy.
All right. Any questions from yourself?
No, it's really interesting though, especially the stuff about the cosmetics at the end. I'm definitely gonna have a look through mine, I think.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Awesome. I'll leave everyone there then to crack on with their lunch, and just remind you to come down to Remedy for your free gift, coffee and cake. It'll be a takeout, of course, just in the Royal Exchange Arcade. And then drop us an email if anyone's interested in joining us at the gym. We are in pre-launch, so we're doing pretty good with the memberships, and we are going to limit the numbers as well before the doors open. And if there's nothing else, then I'll leave you guys to it.